So actually, I think it might be worth doing a quick round of introductions. Obviously, Ty and I are pretty familiar with each other, but BA, Tyler, if you guys want to kind of introduce yourselves, I think that might be a good start.
I'm pretty familiar with you too. We go way back.
Who here has broken one of Omar's bones?
This guy? Are you talking about me? It was by accident, purely. Well, he had his bones where they shouldn't have been. Wasn't my fault. Oh, Ty, my name is Brandon. BA. My buddies call me BA. Feel free to do the same. Used to fly with Omar. We flew together. We're all in the same squadron. I don't know how much,
he hasn't told me anything, so start from ground zero.
Okay, great. So I think I met Omar probably about 10 years ago at the squadron, thereabouts. I'm one of the initial guys that started that could have kind of stood up the squadron when we moved it from Michigan down to Florida, Tampa. So I'm kind of what's known as an OG, which is why I have the gray hairs, because trying to keep up with guys like Omar. Tyler came on shortly thereafter, probably 2 years after that, maybe 4 years after that, something like that.
2012 is when I arrived.
2012 was okay. Yeah, so I got down there in 2008. So yeah. And as far as that, how we know each other, and then just through business, wanting to kind of help each other out and get there together, side by each, and kind of keeping in the spirit of the team, I guess, or the air crew guys getting together and doing some stuff, wanting to make it happen. We just can't get enough of each other, Ty. That's basically what the problem is. I don't know if it's a problem, it's a curse. I don't know what it is, but we love each other, man.
A little bit in column B. Where are you located now?
I'm in Orlando. Tyler is in Tampa, and I fly for a major airline. Well, not since February, but I used to fly for a major airline, and I don't know what my future holds, Ty. So if you are taking anybody applications, I'll be sending you mine.
Give them a little bit of your fitness background too.
Yeah, so getting into that, I owned a few fitness gyms, CrossFit gyms. I've been a personal trainer since college, though. And again, if the gray hairs give you an indication, I'm older than these guys. So I graduated college in the 90s. If that gives you any, you could do the math later because it might.
Like he graduated in 1990.
You might need an abacus. So, but even then, I was a trainer. Exactly. Back then, I was a personal trainer and kind of got in that field and thought that might be something I wanted to do. And I wrestled in all my life, pretty much.
Do you still own either of those?
No. So what I really want to get into, and it was purely by luck, is something that was kind of I guess in this case COVID proof, but this is before COVID. I wanted something recession proof, something that had a little bit more reach, I suppose, than a brick and mortar. So getting into software, stuff like that. So I sold out of them. And long story short, I sold out of them and invested elsewhere. And then COVID hit. So
smooth sailing sense.
Exactly. For everybody. Right. Smooth sailing right over the cliff, right over those falls. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, Ty's really big into obviously aviation, so he's got his pilot's license. Brandon used to fly a Herc and then on to 135, I believe, and Tyler's been 135 your entire military career. But I know you guys have a variety of other FAA licenses, so I'm the only one on here that can't claim that, so you guys can talk about it without me at some point. But
we'd never talk about that without you. We'd do it to your face.
As for me, I've been remodeling, painting, and doing electrical work. My MacBook died yesterday, so trying to get my setup, which is why it came down to the last minute. So appreciate your patience.
What'd you end up doing? Wait. You can't just gloss over that. Are you is somebody holding the camera right now on the other side?
Yeah.
That's great.
I've got a.
Is it a midget with
unpaid intern?
Yeah, I've got Mike Daly standing over here. He's on stilts. I'm sitting down, mind you. So yeah, anyways, I think I got the technology figured out, and the new MacBook Pro is in the mail tomorrow. Flying reserves. That's how I met these guys, as you already figured out. Retire in February. It can't come quick enough. I'm flying for a civilian company, flying a King Air, a couple days a week here in Tampa. So
is that the same company that took you out to Jackson Hole for a week and just made you
different company? Different company. Yep.
Yeah.
Not to get into it at all. What's that?
Are you doing charters or are you doing flight medevacs?
So it's part 91. So what that means is I fly only for the company that owns the airplane. So they have properties all over Florida and the Southeast, and we take them to inspect different properties, sign documents when necessary, yada yada yada. So
got it.
It's more than anything, it's just a good time, because it's pretty much all day trips and just fly around Florida, and I land and I get to work on the other stuff that we've got going on. But basically, this podcast, I don't know how much Omar's told you, but we're calling it Opportunity Hour. The basis of it, our audience is primarily pilots and aircrew. Up until COVID hit, Brandon can attest to this, that pilots typically are probably the only breed that are blessed with both excessive amounts of free time and in many cases excessive amounts of money. It's a perfect time to put those resources to work, whether it's during COVID or whether it's normal life pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID. So what we're trying to do is to keep the podcast focused basically on two things. Either one, we talk to aircrew that have side businesses and talk entrepreneurship and hopefully inspire, other pilots to do the same. Or, you're a private pilot, but, we're interviewing you and talking to you because of Roam Fitness, and you provide a service to pilots essentially. And with that entrepreneurial background, I think, there'll be a lot of value there. So just kind of a short story, really long, is kind of what we're doing. So this is all about you, talking about you. So yeah. Well, I'll default to Omar to lead the way.
Ty, I think a really good place to start is actually, I've got the joy of seeing this, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but why don't you give us a quick Roam elevator pitch, just so the audience has an idea of what it is, right? You don't have to do the same one we did in business school.
Yeah, the one that I messed up on in front of a stage of 200 people and froze and was like, fuck.
Oh, that was so classic. So Ty is, he was our valedictorian for our MBA class. Came out of Dartmouth, Ivy League school, right? But and so you just expect excellence out of all the time. And the only time I ever saw he gave his elevator speech at our home venture capitalist competition. I think you were probably 20 seconds in and you're like, fuck, forgot it all. Fuck it. And walked off stage. I think you actually said, fuck, forgot everything. And just walked off stage in front of everybody. It was so good. Anyways, but a condensed version and not as much pressure here.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, at the core of it, Roam Fitness is a brand of airport gyms and health clubs located in the terminal behind security. Our goal is to allow passengers, flight crews, and employees to burn off some stress, have a healthy outlet during their airport experience, and yet kind of still focus on their bodies while staying connected to their busy lives so that they can board that next flight feeling happy, healthy, and productive. And that's true for any airport patron. The facilities are 1,000 square feet. They're pretty small, but very luxurious. We actually built ourselves a prototype before launching our first spot to kind of figure out optimal flow. Services include access to a full lineup of gym, cardio equipment, strength training components. We've got private bathroom showers. It comes complete with bath products. So, soap, shampoo, conditioner, towel services all included. We also have a clothing rental program, which is included in the price. So we have a unique partnership with Lululemon. So if you showed up just like any of you gentlemen are right now, we'll have you on a treadmill or in a yoga studio or just in the shower in about 2 minutes of flat, fully decked out and whatever you want. And then we also have healthy food and beverage for sale that's atypical from what you would find in the airport. So we've got kombuchas and CBD oils and organically produced, locally sourced protein bars and cookies and things along that line. So stuff that you normally wouldn't find anywhere else is our goal. At the end of the day, we felt that the airport experience sucks, and we wanted a healthy outlet, something that was different from the status quo. And so that's what we set out to do.
Nice. There's a lot to unpack there. I didn't know about your sponsor or your partnership with Lululemon. That's awesome, by the way. And just for Tyler and BA, if you guys haven't been into one of the Roam Fitnesses, I went to the one in BWI. How many do you have now, Ty? I know you're building an SFO still, right? Is that
one right now? We were supposed to have a second one open in San Francisco almost 3 years ago. And that's just the typical story. We also had blueprints all drawn up and a lease ready to sign at JetBlue Terminal in New York, and then at the ninth hour, they pulled out and they went in a different direction. So that's kind of par for the course. COVID has totally messed everything up. The airport world, at least from a concessionaire development standpoint, we saw COVID coming in November, and so projects were already getting delayed at the end of 2019, kind of before the rest of, the layman American would see it.
I want to touch on this Lululemon.
Yeah, me too. That's why I wore my shirt. This is my Lululemon shirt. Yeah.
And we, how did that materialize?
Yeah, we had reached out to a variety of folks. We knew we needed rental gear. That a lot of folks weren't going to have stuff with them, or just didn't want to get something sweaty and put it into their carry-on, or you name it, right? There's 1,001 reasons, and about 50-60% of our users actually use the rental program. We set the thing up with Lululemon. I shit you not, we messaged their Facebook account and said, "This is what we're trying to do."
You mean to tell me you ran a deal through their social media?
That's how we got connected with the right person, but
that's awesome.
That was the initial contact. So I won't mention the other companies that we chatted with, but probably 10 plus others. And we just love Lululemon from a quality perspective. It's on brand with what we're doing. And it worked well for them. This was 3-4 years ago. So they were trying to really get out of just being known as a woman's yoga pant brand and into men's lineup. And so we're like, well, the 60% of our users are men. This is great exposure. And so a lot of the guys come in, they rent the entire outfit. They take the shirt, the pant, or the shirt, the shorts, the shoes, which we do through Brooks Running. And then they buy some of the socks and other stuff that we don't do the rental through. And then they walk out buying a whole bunch of it on their way out.
I was going to say, so there's an opportunity for them to actually buy the stuff that they wear. So that's amazing. That's actually one of the main questions I had was that rental thing. Like, how did that happen? And you answered it in a great way, but is there any pushback on using like recycled clothes, or do they just buy them outright now? Is that the majority?
Yeah, good question. There's no pushback, or if any, negligible on using rented clothes.
Okay.
We professionally launder all of them in between each use. We have them RFID tagged, so we know, we're tracking them so that they're not walking off, because, you come on in for $25, you get a day pass, but you're wearing $200 worth of gear.
Yeah.
We
I'm
want to
trying
make
to
sure
walk
it doesn't
out.
sneak away. But it works well for us because it's a laboratory, right? You get to come in, you get to try out some gear for basically free, right? It's part of that membership. And then they turn around, they're like, holy crap, now I know why this shirt is $70. Like,
exactly.
I would never spend $70 on a t-shirt until you put something like that on. You're like, okay, yeah, now this is worth it. So it's a win-win for them, for us, for the clients.
And if somebody's going to spend $25 for a workout, the chances of them buying the clothes that they just worked out in are probably higher than normal.
Absolutely.
They're probably at least marginally affluent, to get a workout.
And that's just part of being
counting on your price
right?
point right there.
No, I think that's a great price. You look at a CrossFit gym or something, and somebody doesn't maximize their membership, you're paying close to that, you know, and you're right there.
Absolutely.
You're
you can get a Moe's burrito at the airport or any burrito at the airport for like less than $20. So I think it's a fair price point.
Definitely
Absolutely.
fair.
Yep.
Definitely fair. And then you're offering a significant service and doing exactly what Lululemon was trying to do and get out of that niche and actually expand in a way that now, you know, people that wouldn't normally, they want to work out, but they wouldn't normally go step foot in a Lululemon store in their city, wherever they go. But in this transit realm that we've all spent plenty of time in, they're willing to go bizarro and check and go work out and check out this equipment or this, you know, exercise gear and be dumbfounded with how amazing it is. Yeah.
Have you branded the Lululemon gear with the Rome Fitness logo at all?
So all of our rental clothes are co-branded,
Nice.
which is actually a unique partnership. Lululemon doesn't do that with anyone else. All the stuff we sell, we can't brand. You know, we've got just off-brand, you know, cotton T-shirts and stuff like that with our name on it, so that someone can go home with a memento for, you know, a $8 T-shirt sort of thing. So we do have some restrictions with it, but that's understandable. That's Lululemon's control. You know, they run a brand. They need that as well. So, no, it's the airport is this, you know, COVID aside, was this environment that was almost impervious to the death of retail, death of traditional strip mall retail. You're already catering to a customer that's got more discretionary income because you're in an airport. They had to buy a plane ticket. They are a captive audience. Their awareness is heightened just due to the stress and anxiety. If you can calm them down or provide a calming, relaxing nature and environment, their propensity to spend goes up. And everyone's looking how to just make that time fly by. Right. As Omar mentioned, you can't get a burrito for $20. You know, and there, don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for an 8 a.m. beer. I've been there, you know, when you're flying through, you know, airport X, Y, and Z, and you're just like, I got 3 hours. I don't care. I'm going to spend this to make it happen. But it's a great environment if you can be in the right spot.
So just listening to you, Ty, it's amazing because the way you present your concept, it's so fluid. It's so like, yeah, why didn't I think about it? But I still remember the first time you told me about that. I believe we were sitting in Lilligard's class and you were like, I'm going to make a gym behind security in an airport. And I was like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Nobody's going to use that. They're going to be sweaty going in. Like, obviously you kept getting funding and I did not. So clearly, but what was some of that initial pushback, besides obviously for me, to the idea of putting a gym behind security, right? Like, I know I couldn't be anyone that was skeptical at first.
Yeah, everyone's skeptical about something new, right? Like, who would want DVDs mailed to their house, like, you know, and you have to wait, and what a pain, and then you have to go back to a post office box to drop that DVD off, and God, what a pain in the butt. Like, oh, well, turns out Netflix is actually a really freaking good idea. You know, so I think a lot of things like that that are changing behaviors and norms versus a product, right, which is really what we're trying to do, have pushback just because you have to internally ask yourself, how am I going to adjust my normal behavior to make this fit? And so there was just skepticism from some folks on it. And predominantly those were unfortunately, the key decision makers at a lot of airports who were traditionally 65, 70-year-old, you know, kind of fat men for the most part.
That didn't work out. Basically.
Who didn't work out and were like, why would you want anything other than, you know, chicken wings and you know, Bushmiller Coors style beer? It's like, well, go ask your kids. Like, you know, ask your 20 and 30-year-old kid who's much more focused on experiences versus tangible goods. Health and wellness is a status symbol. You know, it's a luxury item that folks are wanting, and all of those kids, all those millennials are working their asses off, you know, 80 hours a week in a job. The first thing to get cut is their exercise routine, especially when you're traveling that much. So we really had to get the naysayers to find someone else that they were close to who would use the service. And that was kind of the carryover. The reason we went into Baltimore first was, why not JFK or Minneapolis or SFO, some of the really big airports. And those guys were interested. They just wanted to see someone else do it first. There was just hesitation, right? They had no risk or no incentive to take such a huge risk like that. BWI was fortunate, or we were fortunate enough that BWI said, yeah, we're up for, experimenting with this concept. And now we have other lease opportunities at other airports because they've all seen, holy crap, there's a lot of good PR for the airport from this. And we're getting diminishing returns by putting in another taco joint. Like, how many different types of tacos do you need?
How many Hudson News do I have to walk across?
You should see Newark. It's nuts, man. So you had an opportunity then to get into the new LaGuardia, the new.
We're working on it. I mean, we'd love to be in every airport.
Sure.
Some of the leases take 5-6 years lead time, right? You've got our challenge. Let me start over. Our core competency as a company is not running a gym. It's lease acquisition and airport concession management. Our second core competency, which is kind of tangential at the end of the day, is running a gym. So when we started the company, it was all about how to get into an airport. And then once we got in, we hired the expertise in terms of gym management, right? That was easier to do versus, inventing something totally new. So we went out on the road, we went to airport conferences and started chatting with these folks. And sometimes they'll say, like, SFO has been a strong supporter of ours, an advocate for this sort of service since day one. But they have their master planning. And when they look at their timeline, they're like, all right, 10 years out, I think we can fit you in this spot. It's like, well, no wonder airports, especially in the US, are still stuck in 1982, with payphones on the wall because they just have an old system that is not designed for innovation.
So I have two questions there from that. One of them actually I wrote down prior because I knew you and I had a discussion about this. I know it's incredibly difficult to get into the airport concessionaire kind of market or fiefdom, right? And you spoke to talking to essentially the key stakeholders there. The question for you is, besides, convincing them, were there any other methods that, maybe other entrepreneurs can use? You mentioned, having the key stakeholders speak to people that they can relate to, or people they respect, right, to kind of change that paradigm that they have. Was there anything else that you think was key into acquiring that first spot or breaking through some of those initial barriers?
Yeah. Two things I'll bring up. One was that prototype that I mentioned earlier. You'd be amazed at the number of folks we chatted with in the airport world who were dumbfounded or confused when we said we want to put a gym, in 1,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet in the airport. And they're just like, I don't get it. What does this look like? And so we originally made this prototype. We rented a warehouse and built a lean-to, stage gym on the inside, and then brought a bunch of folks. And we did that initially thinking it was going to be beneficial solely from a design perspective. But very quickly we realized, and Omar, you came out and actually did a whole bunch of videography for us and some photos. That it was what we needed to sell the information, to relay the idea to those key decision makers. So coming up with a prototype that makes it tangible and takes more questions out of the lineup or out of the pitch was really helpful. The other thing that we did was, we can be our own advocates, and we are all day long, but when I'm standing on my shoebox saying health and fitness in the airport is important, it kind of falls on deaf ears if I'm the only person saying it. So what we did was we created on our website, we have a future locations page, and you can find, top 30 airports, 40 airports, and we have the direct links to all of the, their government employee emails. So it's all public domain information. And now you as consumer, John Doe can directly reach out and say, I want this, I live in Minneapolis. I fly 7 days, a month. I want this service. I will pay for it. Please bring this in.
That's
created that
helped us a lot.
program. Gotcha.
Have you considered maybe partnering with an airline where you end up in their terminal and there's a discounted rate or maybe free for international flights or whatever? Is that something you've considered?
Yes. Our business is prime for partnerships, be it with airlines, be it with hotels. Your Airbnb stay, can come with free use of Roam Fitness, your health insurance, your loyalty program, right? Your Hertz rental car, VIP status, right? Anything related to the travel journey, especially for business travelers, we fit in perfectly into that. We create a high touch point premium environment that can add to and complement the other service. So if it was Roam Fitness powered by Alaska Airlines, we're creating a positive experience that Alaska Airlines passenger then takes with them and associates with Alaska brand. Or the American Airlines loyal passenger sees that and says, now I'll make the switch. Our challenge with setting up those partnerships is that right now with one location, we're still a mom pop ordeal. And those guys are saying, we'd love to partner, come back when you've got 5 and 5 in these spots.
Yep.
Right.
It sounds like you're in a really
it's going to
tough
take
spot.
them. Go ahead.
I was say it sounds like a really tough spot between like working on essentially the airport's concessionaire planning schedule versus like your ability to scale your business at a rapid rate, or the rate of probably which you could scale if you weren't held back by the concessionaire market, right?
Yeah, it's all about getting your ducks lined up in a row.
Yeah, it's almost like a double-edged sword. Well, not double-edged sword. It's a catch-22. The airlines could bridge that gap for you, but then you need to already have something for them the airlines to want to support you in that. So it is kind of a catch-22.
Yeah. And that's once again why there are some startups in the airport world, but predominantly it's not. Every restaurant basically is HMS Host doing a licensing brand.
Absolutely.
It's Parodies and Westfield and some of these big conglomerate developers who know how to run a really good. They're very good at getting the product in there and prices in there, and they've got a lot of obstacles to overcome. Yeah. But it's why they're conglomerates in an IP-less world. When there's nothing stopping anyone else from doing the same service, there's no reason you can't start your own, news and gift store called Judson's, instead of Hudson's.
Exactly.
Nothing's stopping it. It's just that all of these other barriers like long lead times and very expensive build-out costs. All of that stuff is really challenging. But it's an advantage to you down the road. And if you can convince your investors they got, you need this cash and you're going to need to expand as rapidly as possible, and you're going to be burning money for a long time. Once you hit that tipping scale, then you're locked in. And that's the challenge. You have to be a good salesperson.
Have you had rounds of investing? Have you already done that?
We've done it. We've done an equity round. We did a bunch of convertible note rounds, which I'm kind of a fan of because they don't set the price to start with. It's a little bit more flexible and fluid. We're at this weird point too, where we've raised enough money that our next round should be, $10 million, $5 million, something like that. But all of the players who work in that sector, at that ballpark, are in different markets. They're not doing brick and mortar.
Correct.
Anyone who's doing brick and mortar in fitness world, right? All of the VCs behind Equinox and Planet Fitness and so on and so forth, that aren't publicly traded. Those guys are like, sure, I'd love to do this, but I need to cut you a check for $50 million or $100 million.
Yep.
I can't deploy that fast enough for their timetables. And so it's really weird when you're like, wait a minute, it's too much money.
Sure.
And that, you're like, wait, that shouldn't be a bad thing, but
it is.
The transaction doesn't go through.
Sure. It's like buying, way too much milk. You can't drink that much milk. Come on.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Yeah. I do appreciate on your website. Yeah, exactly. I do appreciate, I was able to recognize a wing on the website, and I think it belonged to my company. So my company thanks you.
Yeah.
At least I'm gonna say it does.
Are you speaking on behalf of your company now, Brandon?
I am not
Okay.
speaking on behalf of what company? What are you
Would
talking
you
about?
still call it your company? Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. What? Anyway, so about that investing,
We've got lots of wings on the website, so it could
there
be
were
anyone.
some. It could be anybody's. Sure,
Right.
blue, golden. But anyway,
I did have a question real quick about corporate wellness. You mentioned all the, your business model is ripe for partnerships. And so I believe you and I had a conversation years ago about kind of entering in the corporate wellness space and not forcing companies, but really empowering companies to have their employees use your service, right? Is that something you guys are taking advantage of? Because I know I work for Booz Allen, right? And we have a huge corporate wellness program. I can get discounts to most any gym, but like, I don't know if I run through BWI, if I have access to Rome. So is that something you guys are, actively working on?
Just like all the other partnership deals that, I mentioned earlier, that yes, it makes perfect sense for your employer to provide wellness opportunities and outlets to their employees, right? It costs them very little. It makes that employment, sticky. The person doesn't want to leave if, you get access to all the lounge rooms and you've got all these other perks, and a gym membership ties in really well. And they'll actually, as the employer, will save money on their health insurance premiums by offering proactive services like this, right? That's why they do it. It's the same reason why lots of companies will fly their employees first class if the flight is over X amount of hours, because that's from their insurance company, right? The insurance companies, they run the numbers. The actuary is like, well, one blood clot costs X amount. How many, first class tickets would it cost to offset that? I
want to see that research, because we flew a whole bunch of VPs last year first class. Let me tell you, we didn't have a lot of money at the end of the year for the rest of us.
Yep. So your long answer short, yes, we want to do it, but it comes down to network, having enough gyms for it to make sense for someone on their end, right? Any of these deals that we're talking about require a person from that other company to free up desk space. Yeah. And it's the same amount of time and labor for them to set up that partnership for one gym,
absolutely,
or 100 gyms.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely right.
So, well, actually, tying that concept together, do any of your partners, essentially use your advocacy email that you have set up on your thing to kind of promote and be like, hey, listen, this could be big. Do you ever hear that feedback about your partnerships using that kind of advocacy program that you'd set up, which would be unusual?
Meaning for themselves or
to get to broaden. Say I was a corporate wellness and I want to, like, Rome Fitness is a great idea, but to your point, I need more of them, right? Do you see a lot of any of the corporate wellness facilities using the advocacy line? It's kind of an oddball question, but
if they're using it outside of our own system, I can't tell. I don't know who's clicking on a button and then sending.
I just wasn't sure if you heard feedback. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, someone will CC us to that stuff, just saying, "Hey, I reached out," or I'd love, if an employee at GE sends an email to their HR director and says, "Hey, here's this company. How do we partner?" I'm in and out of Baltimore all the time. How do we get something set up? Yeah. So we do see that, but only if they CC us to that email. Otherwise, it's all, we don't have access to it.
Totally fair. Tyler, I think you had a question, my man. I think that's
I want to talk traffic. Daily traffic pre-COVID and daily traffic in the midst of COVID.
The core competency of our company is being a concession manager. And within the concession world, it's all about employments and capture rates, which is everything that you're getting to is how many people are walking by, what's the how many people of those walking by result in a sale, and then what's the average ticket price.
Exactly.
And so that's all over the spectrum, and it's really hard to tell what employment numbers are walking by your specific gate or your door unless you sit out there for a year and count every day, and do that stuff manually.
You don't have access to any of the airline on the specific wing. Okay.
Yeah, we see some of those numbers, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the airline wants to report to the airport and the airport wants to report to us.
Yeah, there you go.
we get, but that's all voluntary.
Sure.
You know, the FAA does their numbers based off the entire airport, but that's
that doesn't help you. Yeah.
And it's moot because here's an example of how hypersensitive it is. I knew there was of a spa service. I'll leave the name, out of it, but they were a spa company in the airports. They were in a very, top 10 airport in the US. They were on a mezzanine level. The escalator leading up broke down. It still became stairs. It just wasn't moving. And their sales dropped 70%.
Oh,
Jesus.
Right? Like,
wow.
If you're on the right side versus the left side of the terminal,
sure,
you're going to have different passengers, people enplaning versus deplaning, and you better be selling them the right stuff. So
that's
location,
so true.
location, down to the foot and like the column that's in front of you, because everyone's doing this on their phone and then like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the precursor to the answer. Pre-COVID, right before it shut down, we were getting 25 or so users a day, gym users, not including people just coming up and making retail or food and beverage transactions. So, a decent amount. We can go much more than that, but it allows us to handle, basically you get to come on in and you kind of have a private gym, maybe another person in there. There are times where it's empty, and there are also times where we've got, 8 people on in there. There is, as you guys know, as pilots, for the commercial airlines, that there's banking and terminals, and they try to cram everything in there at one point in time. And so you've got those peaks and troughs that will fluctuate throughout the day.
Absolutely.
How did you select your location? Did you get the spot in the terminal that you wanted, or were you basically three locations to choose from? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Every airport's different in how they do it. For our spot in BWI, it was a new terminal a new connector being built out. And so they were like, we're thinking this spot, but what do you think? And we did some negotiations back and forth because it was so new, and we had the flexibility of kind of doing a little pick and choose. Otherwise, what happens is an airport will say, we got a batch of leases coming up. Here's, 10 of them. They get to dictate whatever they want. So maybe they'll say, out of these 10, 5 are going to be food and beverage, 3 are going to be retail, and the others are going to be specialty services. And they know which one is which. And so they'll say, this spot we want to be a spa. And the spa companies all come out and take a look at it and do their own determination and say, this is horrible, or yeah, we'll do this. And there's a little bit of back and forth, but the airport tries to be very public in everything that goes on, which is good, so that there's no, insider trading or under the table stuff. But the problem is it makes the process like even longer and more laborious. And you submit a bid for these RFPs, and they're, some bids cost the concessionaire $30,000 just to submit the bid, by the amount of time and graphics and everything that goes into it. And so it's like, this is horrible.
Yeah, it's like almost like working for the government, huh? We kind of know that process too. It's like trying to get a travel voucher, approved. It takes an act of Congress, literally an act of Congress. What does that say about us as a people, man? We're too lazy to climb the escalator because it's not moving. We won't go up the.
Yeah.
So how do you value this? It's a niche market, and I don't mean that in a negative way, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's something that's special. It's something that is unique, in maybe not in thought, but for us here in the United States, because I've traveled to Japan and they have them and they're amazing. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't we have these? Or, or they have showers. They give you sundry items. It's amazing. It really is.
Take a look at the people in Japan, size-wise, right? Shape-wise, and then take a look at the people in America.
We might require a little bit more room. Yeah, but
there's a greater need for sure.
There's definitely a greater need for Rome Fitness. But so, how would you value the market, or what is this niche market worth? Or or are you kind of going up against just the larger fitness industry?
Our main competitor is not the street side gym, right?
Yeah.
We're not trying to have you switch from your 24-hour fitness membership or your LA fitness,
Sure.
Thing. We want to be in addition to that. The whole point is that you're using us because you're not at home. You're not near your regular gym and your regular routine. So they're not our competitors. Our competitors are actually the substitutes. It's the burger and the beer and the other diversions in the airport.
Wow.
Which is what we're fighting against. Which is why we don't go into O&D, origin and destination, leisure-based airports, right? Vegas has lots of people going through it. Horrible for us, right? We're never going to win against a flashing slot machine right next to it. Yeah. We're never going to win that one.
I'm working out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just one arm's great.
It's huge.
Whereas something like Minneapolis is much better for us, or Denver, or, lots of hub and spoke airports where there's just a lot of travel, connecting flights going through it.
Yeah.
Well, when you are looking at locations to expand to, my first thought would be it'd be more opportunistic at that point, right? Like whatever airport will allow us in a short timeline probably is going to get bumped up on that part of the list. However, are you looking at your demographics from your users and being like, hey, listen, we want to get into a Denver or San Francisco, because innately the people in those areas are a little bit more active, I would think, right? Or at least that would be my assumption, right? So when you're market planning or you're planning to scale, is that part of your strategy?
Yes, it's a part, but it's very small.
Very small.
I had spent 3-4 months looking at every airport in the US and some big ones abroad, looked at each terminal, figured out where TSA security, is it like Newark where it's 3 separate terminals and each terminal is its own wing and each wing has its own security stamp, checkpoint? Well, then it's a horrible airport for us versus something like Pittsburgh, which is a fraction of the size, but one security checkpoint, and you go through and you're in the whole thing and it's all in one building. Like, that's way better for us. So, and then there's different airline, who's our customer? Is it the
Delta client, not the Southwest flyers. We know that.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody in Spirit going to pay $25 for a gym membership.
Exactly.
You're not talking about low-cost carriers here. I mean, no offense to low-cost carriers, but
yeah, it's a different segment. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. They've got their segment. We looked at all of that, and it goes right out the window. I mean, it's moot, because at the end of the day, it's like, what lease pops up that's available that you can afford and that's in a right spot. And so we had 4 other offers before we said yes to Baltimore, that we said no to because they just weren't going to be good enough.
Can you mention who they are? You don't have to.
No. Because I still want to go back.
Curious.
Those airports I'd still love to be in, just not in that spot. Where they were like, oh, we got the spot. It's all the way down to the end of a terminal. All right. That's great for a vending machine.
We're talking about that niche.
I never answered your question about market value.
But I guess bringing it back is because Omar interrupted me. But bringing it back to that, but it kind of made me think, as you partner with a potential airline, and would a good structure for you to aim for their, executive lounges, the international traveler or the business traveler, because those are the folks that are going into those, lounges, they're all over these high-end places. Is that someplace that you would position yourself to get out of the market of like the food? You don't want to go buy the Steak and Shake or whatever that's in the, I don't even know, is Steak and Shake? I don't know. I like milkshake. Sorry.
Yeah. Partner with what's that? The military.
The USO Lounge.
USO Lounge.
Yeah. We do work with the one in Baltimore. We also have we have a 40% off a discount for all military members.
Nice.
Right. So
good to know.
We try to help out there, and then we do stuff with the USO. From a partnership with airlines and their lounges, the lounge user is a little bit older and not necessarily the demographic we're looking for, albeit we're a great feeder for them, right? Our average user is like in their 20s.
Really?
Much younger, in their late 20s. And so that's the person that we want, or that the lounge wants to get in. And so if we can we would never want to be located inside a lounge. We'd want to be located right next to one, with kind of backdoor access, where you can buy one, get into both facilities sort of pass. And we do that with one of the other lounges in BWI. We partner with the club there. So you can, if you're a priority pass member, you already have a lot of discounts with us, but you can buy a multi-pass that gets you into both spots.
It just so happens that I am a priority pass member.
There you go. Now you cannot combine your military and your priority.
Oh, come on.
We won't give you both. International is something we need to explore. Our biggest user right now is the domestic traveler, who's doing like a 2 or 3 hour flight.
Well, that's because you're a BWI though.
Yeah. So it's going to change no matter where every airport's going to affect the number and statistics that we've got.
Okay. That makes sense.
I want to back this up a little bit. I know that the majority of the people that are going to watch this are, thinking about entrepreneurship, aren't nearly as far, or maybe have some of the skills that you have. And so my question, I think, is, when did you know, I'm going to frame this up as far as scaling. Like, at what point did you know you needed to start hiring extra people besides you and Cynthia to run this, right? Or to make, bring this to fruition?
Yeah. So to give some insight for your listeners, Cynthia's my co-founder. We met in grad school, and we've been working on this project together since day one. 50-50 split, partners in crime sort of stuff. We brought someone on towards the end of grad school, just to kind of experiment around with what that was like. We thought they might be a good fit, but turned out it wasn't going to be great. It wasn't going to work out for what we needed. So then we went back to just the two of us, because, as I mentioned, what we needed to do at that point in time was create a brand and sell it to the airport. And both of those things we could do. We knew that when it came time to actually running a gym and training the staff and doing all the stuff for that, we would need outside expertise. And so we waited until we got the first spot and then went out and hired someone.
Really?
So there is a, jump and hope the net appears to catch you.
I love it. I love that analogy, because so many entrepreneurs need to hear that.
Yeah. That's what we do a lot. If you plan for everything, 1, you're going to run out of money. 2, you're going to run out of time. And 3, you're going to make more problems for yourself than you needed, right? We were trying to solve issues proactively, like how to keep the weights from walking off and stuff like that, because now it's a weapon. And once we started bringing this stuff up, TSA was like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. I'm like,
damn it. Why did we do that?
Said anything. Like,
oops.
Shouldn't have done it.
And by weapon, I mean a pillow. It's really not a weapon at all.
Yeah.
I just.
And then I was like, they won't even walk up an escalator that isn't moving. What do you think they're going to do? Take a weight with them? Yeah.
Exactly.
So, you just have to do a lot more of, that's entrepreneurship, is promising everything before you have delivered on it, right? Edison did the same thing. He was telling everyone the light bulb was working, but he wouldn't show it to them. And he was lying. He was straight. I'm not saying that's what we do, but you hear common stories of that.
Well, you kind of just
basically stretching the truth and then hoping that it works. And you see a lot of people, rightfully so, who should get fucked over by doing that and can't deliver, right? Fire fraud. Billy McFarland with the Fire Festival was doing that, saying that it was all going to work, and then it didn't. Elizabeth Holmes with Theranos and her blood testing device. She was like, this will work, but it's the secret sauce. You can't, no one can know about it. And Edison did the exact same thing. It's just that his worked.
He's the only one that really, not the only one, a big one that worked. Some of those other folks just failed terribly. It's hard.
Yeah. So I guess, bringing that home to, like, if you, as a young entrepreneur, when do you, what are some of those checkpoints where you're like, all right, I need to start hiring people? Is it just when you move outside of your area of expertise? Is it when you secure funding? Like, just a little bit of guidance there for, people who didn't have the same kind of training that you did, right?
Yeah.
And it's
a good question because it's not
or, a product.
Yeah, it's not easy to answer.
Yeah,
and some folks will say hire people you absolutely trust and make sure that your hires are perfect and spend a lot of time with that. And I'm like, yeah, that's great and all, but at some point in time, you're just looking for anyone with a pulse because you've got so much work that you'll just take whatever.
Sure.
And I'm more of a fan of the latter approach. Like you will have to do HR. You're going to have to hire and fire people. Get good at that now and start bringing people on earlier rather than later. You will be amazed.
Hang out with you enough to know that I don't want to get fired by you.
I don't fire anyone. I let them quit.
You let because that's better. Great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You take away their desk, their chair, their parking spot. I don't know what happened.
Are you sure you can do this job? Doesn't sound like you're cut up for it. I don't know.
I don't have any more pencils or pens, Ty. How do you expect me to write?
Yeah, I gave you crayons. What's the issue?
Make it happen. I don't understand.
So let me kind of reframe that then. Reframe that question is, if you aren't bringing in revenue, like you weren't probably when you first, like, how are you hiring people? Like, what are you hiring these people with? Like points on the back end, like equity, like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Every company is going to be different and it depends on your growth. Folks will say, don't give equity away because, that's going to be worth a lot down the road. My thought is if you don't give giving equity away gives people buy-in. They want to deal with it longer, but 100% of nothing is still nothing,
exactly.
Right? If getting another person helps you grow, then at the end of the day, if you walk away with 3% of $1 billion, that's a lot of money. Like, I'll take
too
that.
Shabby. Not too shabby.
Right. Cool. That's solid advice.
Teams are good. Teams are what VCs and investors want to invest in, right? And they know that your product's going to pivot, your service is going to pivot, you're going to change a lot of things. So show them you've got a team that's adaptable and has a track record. So if you've got someone on board already and you've shown that you know how to onboard someone and collaborate together, and you've done it for 2 years before taking on funding, great.
Oh, yeah.
So if that means giving that person equity, awesome. Or coming up with some variation where they can choose, at the end of a year, you either pay them the hours that they've worked or give them equity for comparable amounts.
There's so many different ways to kind of work those deals. And that's the part of the stuff that I really get, you can say that I enjoy.
You get turned on by it. It's all right.
I was going to say turned on. It does make me fuzzy inside. Because there are so many different ways to skin that cat. And where, me and Tyler talk about this all the time is that there's ways where everybody wins. Everybody's happy. There are those ways. Either everybody has to be happy or everybody has to be like mortified. And it's still a win. But at least it's across the board. And you're able to walk away from the table and get something done and just get the work done. You're trying to create that team to get it done. And I think
call everyone a founder. Call your first.
Call them whatever. Everybody wants a title. Sure. You get that too. What do you want? The shoe shine? Yeah, that too. Whatever you want. Just let's get this done.
A leader will spread successes and a good leader will spread successes and give them credit to everyone else and will absorb and take responsibility for all the failures.
Exactly.
So just start out, be the guy that's always failing and your team is always succeeding and your team is all founders. Like that sounds great to me because that's going to be the best teamwork environment from buy-in, and investors will like seeing that. And then when they come, when push comes to shove and they say, all right, well, who has final executive decision, right? You show them the paperwork that shows you've got one more share and,
and that's it.
You can work through the issues, but optically,
absolutely.
Don't
be the head honcho.
What's so funny? You always hear that, like, people are betting on the jockey, not the horse, right? We've heard that so many years, right? And it still rings true, but I think that's a really astute point, Todd.
What year did you graduate grad school?
15.
Okay. Oh, wow. So 5 years, this is where you're at, huh?
Yeah, for better or worse.
Good. No, that's great. I mean, I love the way you're.
The way you said that, I'm like, ouch.
Really?
I'm not any of my friends anymore.
I'm just saying. I don't know. I expected more out of you, Ty. No, I'm kidding. No, it's great.
That makes two of us.
From 5 years, I mean, concept, putting it all together, you're in an airport, your proof of concept is there in just 5 years. Because, look, getting into the aviation industry, regardless of what you're trying to do, if you're trying to pump gas, it's tough. I mean, you need badge after badge. You need credentials. They got to do all the vetting. It's not easy. It's a pain in the ass. So for you to be able to do that in 5 years is impressive to me, knowing what I know about the industry, which apparently means nothing because I'm probably going to be out of a job here soon. But it's impressive. It is impressive.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And we think so. I mean, when we look at our PR page, it's all organic stuff that to us is a testament of people wanting this sort of service.
Really? Is it organic? Martha Stewart, really? I mean, I read that one and I'm like, is the convicted, is the jailbird really in on this?
Hey, if that's what they want to write about, that's what they want to write about.
I like the men's health. And there was one that I read that was awesome. And they gave a great, it was almost as if I was there. Like I went through the process with them. I think it was one of the recent ones, like Stay Fit, or I think I wrote it down. Yeah,
some of the blogs or some of the smaller ones really do good customer journey narratives versus just talking about it. And those are fun. Yeah,
it was exactly what it was. And I felt like, I actually used the Lululemon gear and I didn't take it though. I put it back in the bin.
I kind of want to touch on marketing. How are you utilizing your resources? Because it's one of those, not everybody that's, if you want to do, marketing for, location, people aren't necessarily always coming from Baltimore. Last times they're probably going through Baltimore. So are you utilizing social media, signage in the airport? What are you guys doing?
Yeah. So my co-founder, Cynthia, is our CMO. She does all of our marketing and anything you see from us on a social media standpoint, she's our brand voice. But I can still talk to, what it is she's doing from a high level perspective. Our biggest challenge, as you've already touched on and have alluded to, is just-in-time marketing. How do we reach out to a person 12 to 36 hours before their flight going through BWI? Right. If you just find out about us at the airport, you might not have enough time to use us, but you also just haven't mentally gone through that process of, okay, am I going to feel comfortable working out in the airport? You have to walk through that mentally first before you make that purchase. Yeah. If you find out about us by reading that Men's Health article, but you're not flying through Baltimore for another year, then it's, it doesn't matter. You're going to forget about it and you're not going to plan on it. So trying to figure out that just-in-time marketing is a challenge. It's one of the reasons we want to partner with hotels and airlines because they send out those emails. They know who's going through the airport, or Airbnb or your rental car. Any of those folks have access to that information. We predominantly use social media. We can do geolocation, proximity marketing. Version 2 is we have an app, and so right now when you buy a pass, it just is through an online portal on our website. We'd love to have an app that goes into your, that feeds into your calendar and into your flight data, so it knows, hey, you've got a flight coming through this airport. Can we pre-sell you a pass for a discounted rate? And let someone know about it a little bit ahead of time. We have worked with some hotels in the BWI area to give their users, a discount rate, but also let them know about us while they're still at the hotel. But it's a big challenge. Yeah, just-in-time marketing. You can do stuff in the airport. Some airports allow you to put whatever sign out you want, the easel in front. Some will say, absolutely not. You can only have your, sanctioned 3x2, lettering that we've approved that's above your sign. You can buy marketing in an airport, but it's all subcontracted out, right? Any vertical flat space or a column, the airport said this is a value, and they sell it to JC Decau or any of the other marketing firms, and then they'll like, oh, you want that jet bridge sign? Like, That's $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Every surface
I
is.
can buy a lot of
Tell me
clicks for
more.
$1,000.
Yeah, you certainly can. Every surface is a marketing opportunity.
Yeah.
So when you first started, Ty, what was that mix between like, all right, we need to spend the majority of our funding that's, that we have secured on building out, the actual, location versus promotion, right? Is your recommendation to a young entrepreneur to, hey, let's focus on building awareness, or is it, hey, get that MVP right, and then kind of, and it's going to vary obviously depending on the industry and the product that they're selling. But what were your thoughts there when you guys first started out? As far as like how much to allocate towards promotion versus like actually building the product?
Good question. And you're right. It's going to depend on the type of product, but I would say MVP is more important. One, from just building a good product, you want something to be good, and your product should be marketing in and of itself, right? It should be something that sells itself, right? You should.
You guys were all over the news when you first came out. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Investors are going to want to see more of the product itself. You can create the buzz later, and buzz pre-product doesn't do you a whole lot of good unless you can keep them entertained, right? Like Tesla's Cybertruck has been out, but they've got enough other Teslas out on the road that it keeps your brain going. Otherwise, it's not a 5-year lead time telling people about the future upcoming thing. Not unless you've got a huge budget for it. So I would say focus more on the product, and then market with non-traditional means. They get people's attention a lot more. Like we set up a hotspot in our construction zone, a Wi-Fi hotspot that had no password, and it was just named Rome Fitness Airport Gym at BWI. And so when people would pull up their phones, right, they'd be like, oh, what's this? Right. And it was just it was a name so they could start seeing it. But, that's $100 a month.
You're able to rip their information from their phone?
No, we weren't hacking into anyone.
Oh, come on. You ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
You could, for maybe another, little bit of cash, if you were a good programmer, you could make a landing page that they got on that free Wi-Fi, and then it was coming soon. This is what's happening. Pre-buy your membership now or whatever. So like come up with ways that's
genius. Yeah.
The billboard in the jet bridge that shows the Rolex watch is only doing so much good to make another sale on Rolex watches.
Yeah.
Something that's different is going to catch people's eye, and go with that. Be creative.
That's awesome.
So
it's smart.
Another example real quickly in that, right? We go to these conferences all the time with airport concessionaires, and typically you buy a booth that you stand at, and it's an expo hall, and whoever wants to walk by you walks by you, and they can be really expensive. And so we started running the numbers, and we're like, for the $5,000 we spent on that one conference, I'd much rather spend that on $5,000 of swag, including Lululemon gear and all these other things, and go around and meet all of the folks and then just give them a bag of swag. That's going to do way more good for me than buying a booth that no one's going to walk by, even though that's what everyone else is doing. Don't think that what everyone else is doing is the right thing to do.
That's
true.
A really good point to foot stomp there, Ty. But also to say, you need to come work for Booze and change some minds there about buying boots for that money. But Tyler, you had another question. I had another question that doesn't really connect to this, so I'll let you go, Tyler.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a question, but more an idea. You've definitely got, your challenges, as we've discussed, in the passenger airline terminal, but I actually see opportunity in the private terminal, the shelters and the signatures, because you've got pilots hanging out all day, waiting on a passenger. Tomorrow, I'm going to go sit in Daytona Beach for 4 hours while my passengers go do their thing. I would love to be able to utilize that time to work out.
Yeah. There's something there.
And, I feel like you would have a lot fewer barriers to entry with some of these FBOs. If they've got this, 1,000 square foot, they can throw it in the corner. But
is that something you've ever thought about? Like doing something private?
a very good question, right? And I'm also a private pilot. We mentioned, so I spent plenty of time in Atlantic Aviations and Signature, and every other mom and pop FBO, and I see what you mean. The economics of that are really challenging for us because if we have to staff it, we're going to need a lot of throughput on it. If we can make something that's unstaffed, but still, right, your membership works at every Signature and Atlantic and, every Rome Fitness that's at any FBO, but we can cut back on some of the overhead, we can make it work. And that would be great for us because then those pilots also are going to be moving, as when they go back to the airlines, or if they're doing 2 jobs in that, right, it works in all those spots. So we'd love to be there. It's just finding the capital to build it out. And if we can create it so that there's no staff involved, or minimal staff involved, then that would be awesome. The FBO has no incentive to put that in, right? Like if they have a gym or not,
that's not true though.
There.
That's not, I mean, yes and no, because there's typically 2 FBOs at an airfield, you know, so they're jockeying for gas and they're jockeying for all these different, one FBO is nicer than the other.
Value added. You put it in Signatures as opposed to a Shelter or something like that. Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. The FBO themselves have very little incentive to pay for all of that. They'd love for someone else to come on in and do it, right? Like they have a little incentive because it's going to require so much extra core competency that they don't have right now for marginal increase. Whereas if they can lease that space out, even if they're leasing it for free, for $1, then it's value add, and it doesn't cost them anything to do. So that's what I meant by they're not incentivized to do it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Franchise this. Fuck, guys. I think we could go hit these FBOs up here.
Don't
we'll
you
take care of the little guys, Ty. Will you hit up those hub and spokes?
Don't you worry.
Exactly.
Something there.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. The number of times I've gone into an FBO for gas, and there's 2 crew members sitting there just being like, all right, well, we need our 8 hours between flights, or whatever, time
eating donuts.
You're like, and they're like, they're not sleeping. Like this is not helping them rest up because they're
God no.
Yeah, they're like, I'm in my uniform. This is uncomfortable. I'm slamming donuts left and right.
Oh yeah.
The courtesy car broke down.
Exactly. They're too busy looking for LA Fitness. Now they can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I had another question, a little off topic. I know we're coming up 15 minutes here. So Tyler, BA, unless you guys had anything, I wanted to ask kind of nothing related to Rome, but have you seen any aviation related startups recently that just kind of wowed you, that you were like, wow, check this out?
That's a good question. So in the airport concession world, I've seen a couple new ones, which I love. Gameway is one. They do, Xboxes and stuff like that in airports. And you pay
I've seen that.
There's a lady called Skyward, something like that. She's in Dulles, and basically it's a personalized helper to get you through security and get whatever you need. So if you're a traveling parent with 3, screaming kids, you for $20, they'll walk you through security and like help your kids, and then run off to Hudson's and get you the.
That is money well spent right there.
Yeah. Or if you're an individual, a senior citizen in a wheelchair,
absolutely.
And you're their kid and you want to make sure they get through fine. And, the guy who's pushing the wheelchair behind is not, that's not his job. His job is just to wheel you down the ramp. Yeah. So I have to look up the name of that company again, but Julie something or other is the founder. So those are cool.
Let's broaden it outside of airports. Is there anything? And it doesn't even have to be aviation. Any startups you've seen recently that you're just like, damn, that's a fantastic idea?
Yeah, lots of
busy. He's too busy with his own.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, this is let me answer your question a little bit differently and say this is something I want to see happen.
There you go.
And it's in the general aviation community. Electric powered flight is advancing and evolving. Harbor Air out in Vancouver just did the first commercial airplane, float plane, electric powered,
electric plane,
commuter. Like, I think electric powered GA aircraft are going to replace the commute. Right.
Oh, yeah.
San Francisco is sky high rent. People don't want to live there, but there's great jobs. If you could be living in Sacramento and do a quick hop up and over in your electric plane, that is awesome. It doesn't need to fly for 5 or 6 hours. Like, it needs an hour distance tops. And if you can create basically, right, like the dumbed down version of a sport pilot certification, something that's 10 hours, and basically you buy a route. Planes can take off and land themselves, right? We're basically at that stage. If it's VFR
slow down. They still, come on.
Yeah, not big jets, right?
Just don't tell everybody that. I mean, you're right, but don't tell everybody.
Small planes that can do parachutes, all right? We'll put some caveats in
there. That one. Yeah.
And so if you're living in Spokane and you need to get to Seattle on a daily basis, having something where you can pop in that little aircraft, you've got 2 other folks that work with you or that commute on in, and you buy the route for, $30 and upload it to your iPad. And now it knows how to get you from Phelps Field to Renton. Like, awesome. Great.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the future of GA aircraft, is electronic flight and quasi-automated or autonomous flight.
Well, you saw Elon. Elon had a kind of a good talk about that. I think he's gonna, especially
do it.
Yeah, Battery Day is coming out here in, I think, a few weeks. I think before it splits or something like that. So it's dating this podcast, but and I think along with that, there was a few articles that led up to, hey, we may put this technology, the battery technology, into aviation and give it to some other company for them to, because I mean, obviously that's not his thing, but the battery itself is. And
that's the weakest link right now, is providing enough juice and enough weight.
And there's nobody that's there's nobody along, farther in that space than Tesla. So we'll see.
The rest of it exists: the airfoil, the composite materials, the motor, and the software. I mean, look at if you have a DJI or any other similar drone. It'll take off, fly itself, do a lap. Look at the firework displays that are put on with drones that are all choreographed things.
Isn't that nuts?
We can do this.
Dude, it's bad. I saw one in Japan China, in Hong Kong during one of their New Year's. Their New Year's, right? The Chinese New Year, Hong Kong's New Year, like 2 years ago, something like that. And it was amazing. I couldn't believe what, and I kept asking, those are drones? Like, those are drones. Like, no way. Drones. Like, drones. My buddies are like, yes, you idiot. Those are drones. You're an aviator. Remember that.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for hybrid aircraft too. Getting back to Ty's point, taking off with, conventional fuel.
And then flying electric.
Cruise and descent, you're electric.
Now, Nikola. So what's that company name? Nikola, or the other one that's kind of rivaling Tesla?
Yeah.
They have two sources of
they're hydrogen too, right?
They're hydrogen and electric on their semi trucks. So I mean, there's something there.
Yep.
There's something there.
But to your point, Tyler, there's some great gliders out there that have the centrifugal props, right? It starts spinning and it comes out of the nose cone, and then when they turn the motor off, it sneaks back in. Like, there are some efficient ways, fuel-efficient ways. I used to tell people that they were blown away. My first plane was a Grumman Tiger, and I used to use it a lot going from Eugene to Bend for work. I was like, guys, it's cheaper for me to do this than it is to drive my, mini SUV up and over the mountains.
They couldn't believe it.
Because it's 28 minutes.
Yeah.
Cheaper. Like,
they don't get it.
More affordable.
Awesome. Yep. Well, I think we're about to wrap up. Is there any questions that you wished we had asked?
No, there's a good question.
I mean, you guys hit on all the right points. I see the COVID shutdown right now as, I mean, yes, it's a PETA for everyone, but there's a lot of opportunity that it's opening up. We're really excited about it because we've been, you know, screaming from the tops of our lungs for 5 years about how the airport world needs to drastically change in order to bring about innovation and new concepts. And it's needed a catalyst like this to bring around everyone saying, all right, how do we reimagine this whole sector, right? We can start from ground zero, right? There's some towns that have been built like that, right? A tornado comes through and it blows it all the way out. And they're like, all right, we're going to start over with every lesson applied now. So things like COVID, I don't think should be viewed as the end of the world. They can bring around a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of money sitting out there from investors. They've all pulled out of, you know, deals
Everything
that they were
else.
worried about, and now they've got cash, you know, dry powder sitting on the side, waiting for the next thing that is drastically different. We have a lot of pain points. Create something that will solve it. But there is cash out there. You just have to be something totally new.
Yeah, very true. That's great advice.
Cool. Hey, Ty, thank you so much for your time. Tyler, BA, anything else there?
No, I appreciate it, Ty. You gave us a lot to think about and gave the listeners much to be encouraged about. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, my pleasure. It was great chatting with all three of you. Nice to meet you, Tyler and BA. Let me know when your podcast is out, and you know, I'll edit it and such, and we'll put it out on our media channels and our personal channels. And
sure.
You know, happy to promote that stuff along, and let me know in the future however else I can help. Whenever your airline decides to come back to our terminal in Baltimore,
there you go. Yeah.
You know, let us know. We'll hook you and your friends up with, you know, a whole bunch of passes. So
yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ty.
Thanks, brother.
Ty, man.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.